Taipei, Paraguay. This is Guarani May. In this podcast, we will be learning how to speak Guarani, the language of the beautiful country of Paraguay. My name is Paulita, and I am doing this podcast as part of my service as a United States Peace Corps volunteer. Right now, I'm guessing those of you who are listening are future volunteers, current volunteers, and maybe some, probably got some State Department workers in there, and any other English speakers who are crazy enough to take on the task of learning to speak like this. So, I have about a year here in Paraguay right now. Before I arrived, I had never heard one word of Guarani, and I arrived and said, wow, that sounds insane. And so I also did not know much Spanish when I arrived, so the transition was pretty tough. I'm hoping I can help my fellow volunteer by giving them a little bit of Guarani learning before they arrive, so they can at least say hello and impress some people on their first day. I'm also hoping to help my buddies who are already here in Paraguay with me learn Guarani, because all the cool kids are doing it. So this is how the podcast is going to go down. I'm going to do 10 new words every podcast. We're going to have a little bit of grammar, and we're going to have a little bit of review. After I give a new word, I'm going to pause so you can repeat it. At the end, I'm going to have a native speaker, a buddy from Paraguay, maybe my neighbor or someone I work with, say the words during the review. Today, we're going to talk about the idea of yo para, which means the mixture of Guarani and Spanish, and we're going to go over some greetings. Then we'll talk a little bit about how words are made up in Guarani. I've been taking Guarani lessons for 6 months, so I'm just at the point where I can have little conversations, but I'm still a student for sure. So I'm going to have a trainer who speaks Guarani and English review all these lessons to make sure I did not screw up. Here's a caveat about Guarani, though. If you're talking about what's right and what's wrong, Guarani is an oral language that varies from region to region. For example, if you look in the dictionary, you can find 3 or 4 different spellings for a word sometimes. The Guarani that I know is right on my street in Jatete in the region of Guaira. There may be variations in different areas, so the best way to learn is really to practice with the people where you live. But it is just like in English. For example, if you took someone from LA and you took someone from Chicago and you took someone from Boston and put them in the same room, they would all be speaking very differently. They'd be speaking English from America, but it would be very different. Just like that, we have Guarani from Paraguay, but a lot of it is very different. You will know when you get something wrong when people point and laugh at you, and then you will learn by shame. So here's your first major lesson in how people speak, which is the idea of yo para. In Paraguay, you got your Spanish and you got your Guarani. When people say Guarani, Guarani, they mean total Guarani, which hardly anyone uses. You'll find that mostly out in the Campo. In fact, some Peace Corps volunteers who live out in the Campo, which is the country, they will speak almost entirely in Guarani. And then other people who live in Asuncion don't really need to learn Guarani, because in Asuncion, in the capital, a lot more people just speak Spanish. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, so there's a mix here, which they call yo para. So sometimes you'll learn the Guarani word for something, and you'll be like all shiny and new and excited that you know how to say window in Guarani. So you'll be like, oh, please close the window, and you'll use the Guarani word, and then they'll look at you like you're a total dork, and they'll be like, just use the Spanish. No one uses the Guarani for that. And so there you have your shame again, but you'll learn. Okay, so now let's talk about our 10 first words in Guarani. Hooray. We're going to start with greetings, because when people stare at you, if you look as foreign as I do, you're going to want something to break the awkward silence. Just like in English, there are quite a few ways to say hello, hi, how's it going, that kind of thing. The most formal for strangers and older folk is Paishapa. That silence there was for you to repeat the word, unless you're in public and you don't want to look crazy. One more time, because you got to get down with Paishapa. Baishapa. For people who are your age or with whom you're friendly, there is Baitakoiko. And also Bailaporte. For either one of these, your response is going to be Ipona. which means you're doing well. Pora is a word that means good, pretty. It's just your overall good word. And we'll go over it more a little bit later. You could also respond with tranquilo pa, which means everything is tranquilo or chill. There you see a little of the yo para with the Spanish tranquilo and a Guarani word ending pa, which we'll discuss later. After someone says, how are you, and you say fine, it's nice to say, and you. For that, you're going to say, hande. Most likely, if all is well, they will say, ipona avei. That avei means as well, as in, I'm good as well. Other less formal greetings are, haupe, which literally means, and then. And there's also one quick one that you'll see boys and men passing each other in the street on a bike maybe real fast. They'll just yell out, oh! And for one last word, we're going to say goodbye, for which you can use jajo topata. One more time, it's a long one. Jajo topata. So there you have it, 10 words to study this week in Guarani. Now we're going to take a little trip to go hang out with my friend Mariela and listen to some conversations.
Baela parte.
Ipona, hande.
Ipona avei.
Baete koiko.
Tranquilo pa. Baeisha pa.
Ipona, hande.
Ipona avei.
Okay, sweet. So, if your brain is fried already, and take a TV break, go eat a Twinkie while you still can if you're in the States. If you're in Paraguay, I'm sorry I even mentioned Twinkies. If you're good to go, let's go on and talk about how words are made up in Guarani. So at the risk of sounding a little too elementary schoolish, we're going to say that words in Guarani are like little trains. In Guarani, you can add different parts to a word, like different cars on a train. And each little car changes the meaning of the word. Let's look at that long word we just talked about, that word for goodbye, jajo topata. In the middle, there is a verb car with the engine, which means to find. That word is topa. Listen for it in the middle. Jajo topata. So there we have in the middle that verb that's going to drive this whole train. In front, you have the ja sound. Now, who's in the front? You got your conductor, the driver of this train. So what you're going to hear in the very first part is who is doing this verb. With this one, the ja sound means that we do this verb. We find. The jo sound that comes after it, ja jo. That jo sound is a little add-on reciprocal, which means we do it to each other. So right now we find each other, ja jo topa. And finally that ta, that caboose back there on the end. That is a little add-on, little caboose car that means this verb will happen in the future. So now we will find each other in the future. That's the little translation. Kind of like see you soon in English. So don't worry too much about this now. Like, what are all these little parts, trains? I don't know. I can't do this. Please don't do that. Don't freak out. Basically, what you're going to know is that in the beginning of learning this language, you're going to memorize these longer words, and you're going to be like, okay, I'll make these weird sounds if you tell me that it means something. I don't really believe you. But as time goes on, you'll be able to pick apart these little parts of every word. You'll be like, oh, okay, now I know what that means. Now, let's go back to hanging out with my good friend Mariela to review. What would you say to an older woman who you've just met for the first time?
Baeisha pa.
How about someone with whom you are friends?
Baete koiko.
Or
Baela porte.
someone who says baila porte to you, and it's totally chill day, relaxing in the hammock. How are you going to respond?
Tranquilo pa.
How about just saying, I'm good?
Ipona.
Then how are you going to ask them, and you?
Hande.
You ask someone how they are. They say, ipona, hande. How are you going to respond?
Ipona avei.
You're riding your bike fast down a hill and zoom past a friend. What's the quickest greeting you can think of?
O,
You greet a buddy in the street and are about to go on your merry way. How do you say goodbye?
chacho topata.
And great job, I'm guessing. That is all for today. If you have any questions, I set up an email at guaranime@gmail.com. Email me any suggestions, questions, anything you want to say. And also, if you want to know more about how Peace Corps life is down here, I have my blog at peacecorpsparaguay.blogspot.com. I also need to say this is not an official Peace Corps publication. Any opinions that I have about Guarani are my own and not those necessarily of the United States government. Thanks so much, and Jado Zapata!